I'm going to be discussing the government shutdown as well as the Democratic frontrunners and the Republican frontrunners for 2028. Let's get into it. So first thing, the government has been shut down for a little while now. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised that no one cares. Legitimately, it seems like nobody's protesting, nobody's making a big deal. You'd think that all the news would be talking about is the government shutdown, but it honestly seems like nobody cares. And honestly, if nobody cares, if nobody is negatively affected by the government shutting down, nobody's up in arms, then I don't know how important the government could be. If everybody's like, oh, whatever, nobody cares. Now, I understand a lot of people are going to be missing paychecks soon, and then they're definitely going to start caring. But even with that aside, it doesn't seem like people care that much. Now, I do have the betting odds for how long this will last pulled up, and look. There's a 70%, and this is per Polymarket, so these aren't the official odds. But Polymarket has it 10 to 29 days, 70%, and then plus 30 as 28%. Now, I know those don't equal 100, but you get the point. So the public is thinking it's going to last less than a month. It's going to end in October. I don't know about that. I really don't know that it's going to end in October because, number one, it doesn't really seem like either side has all that much initiative, drive, necessity to open it back up. Number one, obviously, Republicans generally are less pro-government, so they want to discussing the current government shutdown as well as 2028 Democratic and 2028 Republican frontrunners for the presidency. Starting off with the shutdown, the government has been shut down since October 1st. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised how no one is up in arms. Nobody's protesting. The news is talking about other things. It doesn't really seem like it's front of mind, which is kind of surprising. And I think that might be the reason why it just continues to go on. Because first things first, even if there was media attention and people protesting, both sides kind of seem like they're, whatever. You know, the Republicans, obviously, with the whole Doge efforts, are very anti-government spending. They want to limit government spending in some areas. Now, from a factual standpoint, spending has increased, mostly through the military, but they like to cut down on some programs not named the military. The Democrats, they're negotiating for benefits, Medicare, Medicaid, who cares? They just want to cause Trump problems, obviously. So the Republicans want to cut a lot of things and or just have the government shut down so they're spending less money. And the Democrats want to cause Trump problems and make him look bad in the media. Discussing the current government shutdown as well as 2025 Democratic frontrunners for the presidency, as well as 2025 Republican frontrunners for the presidency. Starting off the government shutdown, it has been shut down since October 1st. If you're not familiar with how this works, you need 60 senators to approve the continuing resolution, and right now there are only 53. Now, usually the way it works is unless you landslided it in the election, you will have somewhere in the low to mid 50s in terms of senators. So a president comes in, they've got anywhere from 48 at the worst to 58 at the best in recent history, senators of their party, and they also have the majority in the House, and you need 60. So unless you absolutely landslide and have the biggest mandate ever, you're not going to have 60. So every president for their continuing resolutions, they need 60 votes. So they need to pull from single digits. They don't need all of the Democrats to sign up on board for what they want to do. They just need a couple. Now, in the modern era, usually they are strict with their party. So their top party person, which is currently Chuck Schumer for the Democrats, is going to negotiate with Trump. and vice versa. When it was Biden, you get the point. So you have the leader of the minority party negotiates with the president and then try to come to an agreement. Now, currently, the Republicans say they just don't want to give the Democrats anything, and the Democrats say, I want this, this, and this. Now, it's up to you to decide specifically like who's to fault, but I guess it's both. In every case, if you're negotiating, if you don't come to terms, it's both's fault. Because both could make concessions, both could make arguments on why concessions shouldn't be made, but at the end of the day, either the Democrats want too much or the Republicans aren't willing to give up enough. Probably both. But look, at the end of the day, it's probably going to fall mostly on the president because they are the most powerful person, and you just got to make deals. You got to make yourself look better. Now, I will say, and this is why I've got the betting markets pulled up for how long the shutdown's going to last. I will say, I think people are underestimating how long it could last. Now, they could be making a deal as I make this video right now, but the media does not seem to care. Democrats, they don't really seem to care about the shutdown. I mean, they say it's bad, whatever, but I don't see people protesting. I don't see media outlets just bombarding people with it. They're like, well, whatever, we'll talk about other things. So it seemed like they're pretty far apart. And, both sides do have an incentive for it to be shut down. Republicans obviously want to do less spending and potentially cut people's jobs, spend less in the government. Although that kind of isn't really what's happening because they increased the military budget by more than what Doge cuts did. So the spending is higher. But anyways, and the Democrats obviously are very anti-Trump, so they want to make Trump look bad. And the longer the shutdown goes on, the more it makes Trump look bad. So both sides don't really have an incentive to agree to anything. And right now the betting markets have it at, so there's a 2% chance that it opens today. So right now as I'm recording this, it's October 8th. 2% it opens today. 70% it opens days 10 through 29th of the shutdown, so in October. And then there's a 28% chance it lasts longer than a month. And I think the 28% chance is a very good value. Now, one thing I do want to point out is obviously for these markets, the 28%, if you were to bet on that, you have to wait for them to open back up. So if it stays shut down for 3 years, you've won the bet, but you just have to continuously wait for your bet to officially go through. But I think plus 30 makes a lot of sense. I could definitely see it being shut down. I wouldn't be surprised if it shut down into the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. I don't think that'd be surprising at all. Now, with that being said, we're going to be discussing we'll start with the Democratic nominees for 2028. And honestly, they're a little more exciting because, with the Republicans, we've got the VP and the president ideally can't run again. Maybe that he could. So here's what we got. Right now, 37% for Gavin Newsom, and these are the betting markets. These aren't my predictions. But, once Trump won in 2025, you had a bunch of people around 12%, like 8 people around 12% for the Democrats. Gavin Newsom has seemed to pull away, and he's looking to be the plurality favorite. So he's not above 50%. He's not in the majority, but he seems to be the plurality favorite at 37%. And I could definitely see it. He is very aggressive. He's kind of he kind of falls in that Trump mold. Now, a lot of the people on the far left, for different reasons, won't like him because he's not left-wing enough. He's not, he's not like a Bernie Sanders where he's beating the drum for universal health care, free college, et cetera, defund. He's kind of I'd say he's just a normie Democrat. Ironically enough, a lot of Republicans like to paint him out to be super left-wing, a Marxist communist. He's just a standard run-of-the-mill Democrat. He's probably in that Obama camp. Him and Obama are probably around the same. But Gavin Newsom's more that very aggressive anti-Trump, which a lot of Democrats like. Now, another problem that might come for Newsom is you're not getting the far left because you're not progressive enough. You're also not getting a large section of people who are only willing to vote for women, people who don't want to vote for a white man, people who don't want to vote for the California elite. So there are a few demographics that are definitely going to be hurting him, and he's also straight, which doesn't help. But yeah, I think he's probably the front runner. I think Polymarket has that correct. At 10% in second place, we've got AOC. Now, kind of in the Bernie Sanders mold, very aggressive. I do think she has some issues. Number one, she is pretty far left wing. Now, some people on the left are going to say, no, she just fights for normal. Look, she's pretty far in the left wing. She just tried to moderate some, which potentially could help her. But I think once you've done the damage, and I don't say damage negatively, I just mean damage in terms of once you've supported a defund, like you need to just stick with those things, because when you go back and forth, when you say defund the police, you get the section of people that are with you. And then when you go back on that, the people that are pro-police don't like you because you said defund the police. And the people that are defund the police, support that, they also don't like you because now you're turning your back on them. So I think she's too young. I don't think she's the kind of I think a woman definitely could win, but I don't think she's kind of annoying personally. I think a lot of people will be turned off by that. In terms of policy, if you put her policies with Gavin Newsom in terms of kind of his mold, I think that could make something happen. We got Pete Buttigieg at 6%. Pete Buttigieg, he feels kind of like an empty soul. I don't know why. I can't see it. I really can't see it. He's got one of the things that Democrats like to look for in terms of minority status. He is gay, which I guess could help him a little bit. It might hurt him. You guys aren't going to believe me, but when I was talking about Pete Buttigieg, my phone exploded. Like, it just flew off the hinges. So I'm back to discuss Pete Buttigieg. Maybe I shouldn't be talking about him. But as I was saying, empty soul. I don't really care about Pete. On to Josh Shapiro. He feels safe. He feels safe if the Republicans keep doing crazy stuff. Inflation doesn't go down. Immigration doesn't really get solved. And the left wing goes off the wall with AOC yelling at people and all that left wing nonsense. Josh Shapiro could be kind of the common sense. He's a little bit of a centrist for sure. But he feels like the guy that could get the average Democrat, the average independent, and some Republicans. Some Republicans are like, okay, maybe we need to moderate a tide. So I could see Josh Shapiro getting the nominee and potentially winning. We got Wes Moore. Kind of similar to Josh Shapiro. He's not as known. Governor of the state south of Shapiro, Maryland. And I could see it as well. He said he's not running. I could see it. He seems pretty normy. He's very tough on crime, which a lot of people respect. I guess some people don't like that. But we got John Ossoff. No way. His face, he doesn't look like he could do it. Andy Beshear. This is kind of the dark horse, the casual dark horse that everybody puts out there. Look, he's in Kentucky and he wins Kentucky. He's a Democrat. That's impressive, but I don't see it. I don't. I just don't see it. We got Kamala Harris at 3%. Yeah, this is not happening. Kamala Harris is not gonna win the Democratic nomination. We got Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, also 3%. That's how crazy this is. Just politics in general. That we got Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who isn't even officially he's not even publicly a Democrat, but he's the same odds as the vice president who just ran. I mean, that's absurd. Yeah, I don't see that happening. Gretchen Whitmer, as I was saying about women, I think she could win a presidency. I think she could definitely win a presidency. She's pretty normy. She's probably maybe a tad more left wing than Gavin. Probably they're about the same. But if a woman is going to win on the Democratic side, I think Gretchen Whitmer definitely could. Now, the question of Gretchen Whitmer, and this is kind of like Kamala Harris thing, is if you're going to be a woman running, or either or, but let's say you're black or woman or gay, what does your vice president look like? Personally, I don't really think it should matter. I guess it does. Everybody's always talking about we were the, Trump picked Pence because Pence is Christian and Trump's a fake Christian, whatever. I don't think it should matter, but what would Gretchen Whitmer do in it? Would she pick another woman? Would she pick a minority male? Would she pick a gay guy? Who knows? But I think she could win. Stephen A. Smith, he's at 2%. Look, he gives Trump vibes. I don't really feel like Stephen A. Smith's all that political. And the issue for him, too, is he is socially liberal, fiscally conservative, which that's what everyone describes themselves as, but nobody actually likes that. Nobody is socially. That just means you're a rich person and you're like, whatever happens, happens. That's essentially that. I want low taxes, which none of the Democrats are going to support, and then I'm all for, I guess, immigration. That's not going to happen. J.B. Pritzker, 2% no. Jon Stewart, 2%. This is probably the best value here. He is obviously an outsider. I think Jon Stewart, you got Stewart 2%, you got Steven. I think Jon Stewart's a very legit 2%. I think he could definitely, he's got potential. From there, we got Kelly, no. Emanuel, no. Michelle Obama, no. Fetterman, no. Mark Cuban, maybe. Do the Democrats want a white male that's a billionaire? Probably not. He's also Jewish. Probably doesn't help him in the Democratic base. From there, we have really nobody of note. We've got Barack Obama, and a lot of you are like, okay, how is that possible? We're going to get to that once we get to Republicans, so couch that. We have Hunter Biden, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, Liz Cheney, Andrew Yang, Mr. Beast, Kim Kardashian. Okay, we're going to get to the Republicans. And there we are. As I'd mentioned, this is a little bit less interesting because we have the VP of J.D. Vance. And in an ideal world, he'd be the one running, but he's only at 56%. So obviously the public has some doubts about him. It's essentially to pick him. And if you force me to bet J.D. Vance for the field for the Republicans, and I'm not talking about the election, I'm talking about for the Republicans, I don't think it's going to be Vance. I don't know why. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be Vance. It just doesn't make sense to me because there's two options. Well, I guess there's a lot of options in the middle, but there's the option that this administration, because right now it's the approval rating's ticking down, and it wasn't really that high to begin with. If they somehow solve immigration, solve the economy, end the wars, and the approval rating is above 50 in the modern times, if Donald Trump can become the most popular president, which some people are like, oh, his supporters love him more than anyone else. But I mean, in terms of, does the average person, does more than, if you get 10 people, does 6 people say, yeah, I approve of the job? That's what I'm referencing. I'm not referencing, do your supporters like you more than Obama supporters liked him? Because you can only vote once. So if Trump leaves office, if it comes election time and he's got a 58% approval rating, he's going to run again. Now, he might run again even if he doesn't have that approval rating. That's possible, but he's definitely running again if he does a good job. At least according to himself. So that's where it hurts Vance, because if Trump runs again, obviously Vance can't overtake him. But then you have the scenario where Trump does poorly, and if Trump does poorly, then that also hurts Vance, because Vance is part of the ticket the same way Kamala Harris was part of the Joe Biden ticket. And it's gonna get messy, especially if the approval rating gets into the 30s. So I think Vance is kind of screwed either way. Now, maybe it's a normal 4 years. Trump leaves an approval rating of 42, 43, and Vance is just the next thing up, and nobody else emerges, and nobody else vyes for it. Maybe, but 56, I don't see it. I don't see it. Marco Rubio, he's the quintessential VP. If Vance makes Trump mad, then maybe it'll be Trump and Marco. I can't see Marco being the president. He could be a bunch of people's VPs, though. Little Marco. We got Donald Trump in third place at 4%. Look, I think 4% I think it's low, if I'm being honest. Of a 4% chance for him to be the nominee. Now, I'm not saying for him to win the election. I'm just saying for him to be the nominee. All you need to do is change an amendment, reinterpret an amendment. Look, it's happened before. And if you're saying it's not possible, since when has Trump fallen to laws? Even if they don't reinterpret in his favor, he's just going to run. So I think there's a good chance he runs again. And if Trump's running, it doesn't even matter who else is running. If Trump decides, he says, I'm alive and healthy and I'm running, he will be the Republican nominee. There's no debate about it. So yeah, I think 4% is low. What they're saying is there's only a 4% chance that either amendment gets reinterpreted or Trump goes rogue and just says, I'm running. I think there's a much higher chance, like a 40% chance, not a 4%. Tucker Carlson at 4%. I think this is low. I think 4% is definitely low. Tucker's definitely made a lot of moves to distance himself from the old guard of the Republican Party and try to gain a lot of that young support. And especially with Charlie Kirk passing, Tucker Carlson is pretty much, he is the next era of Republican thought. So I think Carlson's definitely dangerous. He hasn't ran yet. There's a guy below him that I'm about to talk about who's already failed once. If it gets messy and Trump wants to run, but it's legal trouble, and Vance runs, and I could see Tucker overpassing Vance for sure. He's more popular, I'd say. You got Rob DeSantis at third, 3%. Excuse me, not third, but 3%. He's in fifth place. Look, I think he blew his chance. He tried to run in 2024. I thought that he'd beat Trump in the Republican debates and stuff, but he didn't. He didn't even come close. He imploded. So I think he's doing good stuff in Florida. The people in Florida like him. So I think Rob should probably stay there. Ron, whatever. I don't see a chance of him becoming the nominee. There'd be kind of the issue for him is, regardless of what happens, kind of similar with Vance, but Vance is in a better spot. I just don't see what would have to happen for him to get it. I can't compute enough different variations to ever see him getting Tulsi Gabbard. There's no way. It just is not humanly possible. Tulsi Gabbard is the Republican nominee. Donald Trump Jr., 2%. That's a good value. Look, if Trump is old and he's like, this is legal trouble. I'm old. I don't know if I'm going to last 4 more years. I don't, et cetera, and he wants to be Trump again, because I can't see yard signs that say Vance Rubio. What? Vance Rubio? No way. I think it's going to be Trump Rubio or Trump and somebody else. I think it'll be. I think there's probably over a 50% chance it is a Trump, one of the Trumps. Who knows? Maybe multiple Trumps. But I think 2% is low. Stephen Bannon, 2%. No way he gets it. Ivanka Trump, I find that unlikely too. I don't see that happening. Glenn Youngkin, Virginia's governor, who is leaving Virginia soon. I could maybe see it. I could see it. Maybe the Republicans, they want a... Glenn Youngkin's kind of the Josh Shapiro, but of the Republican Party in my mind. He's the pretty moderate. He's not super crazy. I think he could be if the Democrats run an AOC, I think Glenn Youngkin could kind of be even if the Trump stuff implodes, I think Youngkin could be the kind of center ground, and people are like, okay, Youngkin works. You got Vivek Ramaswamy, no way, Jose. Maybe it could be a VP. Could be a VP to Vance. Erica Kirk, no, I don't see that happening. Is she even old enough? Is Erica Kirk? I don't even know why she's on here. I thought Erica Kirk was like 28, 29. RFK could be an interesting independent run. I don't see him doing anything as a Republican. Brian Kemp, nope. Ted Cruz, nope. Nikki Haley, no. Katie Britt, no. Matt Gase, no. Is there anyone on here that's interesting? No. Well, Elon Musk is on here. It doesn't even make sense, because you'd also need an amendment. Yeah, that's completely absurd. If we're changing amendments, it's not going to be for Elon Musk. Yeah, I think that's about it. So really, I think it's one of the Trumps, maybe Vance, maybe Carlson, but the Democrats are a lot more wide open. I think it's just a few people with the Republicans.